Minister, as we know, the Brexit result is one of the biggest challenges that this country is facing in many decades. The air of uncertainty is already impacting consumer confidence, sentiment and indeed investments across the EU, particularly in the UK and here in Ireland. There is also an air of uncertainty about how prepared Ireland is for what we are facing. Unfortunately, we are not yet Brexit-proofed. We know that the future relationship between Ireland and the EU and the UK will depend on the UK's priorities during negotiations and the extent to which the European Commission and other Member States can and will accommodate Ireland's specific needs. It is well accepted that Ireland will actually suffer more than any of the other EU Member States because of Brexit. The German Chamber of Commerce have confirmed this during the week, as has the most recent report published yesterday by the Central Statistics Office. The UK is important to Ireland socially and economically is obvious. We exported €15.6 billion last year alone, of which beef was worth €1.9 billion of that. This also included medical and pharmaceutical products, as well as other food-based products. The agri-food sector is exceptionally worried across this island and are predicting that there will be job losses in Q1 and Q2 of next year. These potential job losses will be labour-intensive and rural-based in the main, we're told. If the euro climbs to 90 pence sterling, there will be at least €700 million drop in Irish exports and a potential job loss of 7,500 jobs, which will affect every region in Ireland. We don't have to remind you, Minister, that the agri-food sector employs people in every county across the country, and they do not believe that the government is prepared enough for Brexit. The recent All-Ireland civic dialogue on Brexit, while welcome, has now to be backed up with practical initiatives to protect these jobs. Industry here, Minister, cannot be left feeling isolated while 18 months of negotiations are taking place. During the week, the EU negotiator, Michael Barnier, said that negotiations will be completed by the autumn of 2018. So the pressure is on, and a hard Brexit without any deal being in place may actually be the result, given the differences and the hostility of the positions on all sides. Employers are requesting that an enterprise stabilisation fund be set up to allow them to tackle the sterling depreciation that has hit already up to 370 jobs in the mushroom industry. Has the government any response or plans to introduce this? Irish Government is crying out for assistance to allow them to innovate, diversify and expand market access to allow for Brexit. They have requested, for example, online trading supports and trade finance measures to allow for the fact that Ireland is only one of 2 countries in the EU without a state-backed support for export credit. The question to you, Minister, is, has the Government taken any tangible decisions on any of the above requests? And as the UK edges closer to invoking Article 50, what will the Government be doing to ramp up our preparedness for Brexit?
Minister Coveney.
Thank you, Deputy. And can I say that it won't be a surprise to anybody to hear that the Government has put a huge priority behind managing and navigating our way through what will be a difficult period as we build up to Article 50 being triggered and then the consequences of that afterwards. We have had, as the Deputy has pointed out, an All-Ireland civil dialogue already. We have had a North-South Ministerial Council that focused specifically on this issue. The Taoiseach and the Department of Foreign Affairs and other ministers are working towards getting a common agreed approach on the island of Ireland towards the outcome that we are looking for across parties in Northern Ireland and across parties in the Republic. I know more than most the reliance that the Irish agri-food industry has on the British market. We are talking about a €7 billion trade relationship each year. Nearly half, in fact, half of our beef exports go to the UK, and about 43% of our agri-food exports go to the UK. So I certainly don't need reminding of that, and nor does Minister Creed. And that is why we have a special unit within the Department of Agriculture already set up for quite some time now that has had multiple meetings with their counterparts in Northern Ireland to look at ways in which we can insulate and protect Ireland from currency changes and the potential consequences of the fallout from Brexit. Let me just make 2 things very clear. First of all, Ireland will not allow itself be forced to take sides, either on the British side or on the EU side, because we cannot afford to do either. Ireland needs to remain close in terms of our political and trade relationships with the UK, and we will do so. We also need to be a proactive and strong and positive member of the European Union in the context of trying to manage the fallout from Brexit. And secondly, we will prioritise looking after Irish interests, whether they be Irish citizens in the UK or in Ireland or further afield. And we have taken multiple actions to date in order to do that. There is no country in the European Union that is even close to Ireland in terms of the level of priority and preparedness that we already have in place for the negotiations that are on the way.
Thank you, Minister. Deputy Collins.
Minister, you have said in your response to me there that you have taken multiple actions, but indeed you haven't gone ahead to outline any of them. And you mentioned the All-Ireland civic dialogue which took place, and I attended it myself. And organisations like Enterprise Ireland, the IDA, Intertrade Ireland, the Centre for Cross-Border Studies, the Economic and Social Research Institute, the Irish Congress of Trade Unions, IBEC, all the industry representatives, ISME, etc. They are all pointing to serious job losses in the first half of next year. And you haven't given us here today any concrete comfort or indeed any detail of decisions that you have taken to mitigate that. Equally, if we look at, for example, the tourism industry, the millions of people who visit this country from Europe, how will they be impacted in terms of border control? What will happen in terms of transiting from this jurisdiction to the north of Ireland? So, Minister, what we are hearing is this, is a lot of rhetoric. You are saying that we will be Brexit-proofed, that we will be ready, but you're not giving any specific concrete measures. Will you put money on the table in terms of enterprise stabilisation funds for industry? Will you resource properly the IDA and Enterprise Ireland? You say you're giving them extra headcount. That still hasn't followed through. So will you give us some specifics, please, Minister, in relation to it?
A minute to conclude, please.
With respect, Deputy, I think it's a little bit naive to start asking for detail as to how border controls are going to work before we even have a formal political negotiation between Britain and the European Union underway. Our job is to ensure that there will not be a need for border controls, and the political engagement is intensive at senior civil servant level and also at a leadership level within government ministries, both here in Northern Ireland and indeed in London, and that will continue. In terms of tangible actions that have been taken, in the agri-food sector we have introduced a new low-cost agri-food fund for food companies and for farmers that need to finance business growth and need low-cost finance to do that, to help add to a competitiveness challenge that is clearly there since the changes in value in sterling. So we are taking practical measures on the ground to help businesses and individuals through the IDA, through Enterprise Ireland, through setting up a focus group within the Department of Agriculture and Food on Brexit. They have made recommendations to the Department of Finance, and through the recent budget and subsequently there are a series of practical measures that are put in place to try and insulate Ireland from the potential fallout from Brexit as we anticipate a formal political negotiation beginning towards the end of March.